Last week on the episode of The Bug Bite, we spoke about how these cybersecurity threats can have such a big impact on the SOC analysts as well as many other, tech in general can have a really big emotional impact on your psyche, but especially in for these security people because they are the front line of defense and they are the ones who are trying to prevent these crazy things from happening to our systems, from the systems going down and all of that, right? So this week we're going to pick up on the second part of the article. We read the first part last week about the emotional burnout that happens with people in the cybersecurity space. We want to jump into what is the part of the solution, the second part of this article. So welcome to the episode of The Bug Bite, hosted by your shooty Tech Coach Ralph, where we're engineered to win. Like I said, in today's episode, we're going to be covering the second half of the article. It's a really good article because it shows how things can really be in tech, and it is hard to be detached from your job and from your responsibilities. And when things go bad, a really good professional in the industry, especially in the cybersecurity industry, they have a sense of ownership to it, and that can affect them. So we want to talk about how to deal with that, things like that. All right. So with that being said, let's jump back into the article. So we are at we left off at CISOs facing singular pressures. So it says the fallout from a cyber incident might affect the welfare of the CISO most of all, given the singular pressures these security leaders face. The stress involved has been even shown to lead to increased depression and even substance abuse among CISOs. That is crazy. That is a lot. Going to substance abuse because of the job. I feel really bad about that. It says compounding the issue is the possibility that cybersecurity leaders could face personal liability for their professional action, a fact that has soured 70% of CISOs on the roll, according to one survey. So basically, they're saying that you have better paid me a lot of money if you want me to get into this, right? But I could be liable for personal liability. So like I can be on the hook personally for what I do at my job, right? It's not like I'm going outside the job, but as a CISO, if you make a wrong decision here or you cause a issue there, they say, you know what? Not even through malice, just because you made the wrong choice, the wrong decision, we're going to hold you personally liable for that. So I definitely understand why they can have a sour taste in their mouth, right? It says because of the incident that I went through and my general experience, I've talked to a lot of security leaders when they're in crisis situations, Sullivan says. Sullivan, a former federal prosecutor, was charged with obstruction of justice for his handling of data breaches at Uber in 2016 and was ultimately sentenced to 3 years probation, considered by many to be a watershed moment for CISO's liability risks. That is crazy. So we have the Uber CISO who was given probation, almost sent to jail. It says the thing I always tell them is that your organization and you are going to be judged as much as how you handle crises as you will be judged. So let me read that again. It kind of threw me off. The thing I always tell them is that your organization and you are going to be judged as much on how you handle crises as you will be judged on how you worked on prevention. Okay, I think I see what it's saying now, right? In fact, maybe even more. So it's not only how do you work through the crises, but it's also how much effort are you putting on prevention, because we don't want people just like putting out fires all day long. We want, how can we prevent those forest fires, right? CISOs who leave organizations after breaches often experience a deep sense of relief, like a heavy burden has been lifted from them. And that's why you see more people stepping out of these roles earlier in their careers than I'd like. Sullivan says a recent survey found 24% of CISOs are actively looking at the exit. Hamilton thinks the blame leveled against CISOs for breaches is diminished over the past several years. Prior to even the last year or two, the CISO would be afraid to lose his or her job. Hamilton says, or worse, prosecuted for how they handled the situation. That is crazy that based on, you can be prosecuted based on that. in a moment's time, you're trying to figure it out. I think if, unless there's like apparent malpractice or negligence, then prosecution would be involved. But like just trying to figure it out, and like you only know what you know at the time, kind of crazy. It says, but it's changing now because the chief of information security is now starting to talk in the language of business, and they're not a scapegoat or a checkbox anymore. All right, so that is, I definitely seen that for myself. So let's continue with the unaddressed mental health issues raise. So unaddressed mental health issues raise organizational costs. The range of direct and indirect costs to the organization makes the psychological damage of cybersecurity breaches a drag on corporate lines. With some of the organizations we've worked with, the impact has been felt organizational wide, all the way through the call center staff who may even get death threats from disgruntled employees. Coronis says, then you have the regulators knocking on your door, so you get this massive ripple effect of interacting forces. So on one side you have customers who are banging on your door saying, "What the hell is going on?" And the other side, the regulators are saying, "You do A, B, and C," and we are checking you very, very carefully to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do. All right. It says, among the organizational impacts is a loss of morale following cyber incidents. Psychologist Richard Miller, who has developed a protocol for cyber minds, has based on a program he designed for the U.S. Army, says that in an attack situation, if one person goes down, that's going to decrease the morale amongst. If one person goes down, that's going to decrease the morale amongst all the team members. It says decreased morale, burnout, and PTSD cause attrition. Attrition is basically when people like they leave a company, leave a job. So it's like based on how many people you hire versus how many people you lose, all right? Among cybersecurity workers, which can cost organizations dearly when recruiting replacement personnel. To put it into financial terms, even though that's not our primary objective, to replace people is expensive. That is a fact. If you fail to support your workers and you end up with a big number of them resigning after a breach, it will have a tangible financial cost on the organization. So you adding the cost of the breach as well as the cost of losing all the employees that know the system like their backhand. So it also says, and the loss of personnel could become a chronic problem. It potentially causes a shift in the attractiveness of cybersecurity as a career. We're concerned that young people are not entering the profession because they see the severity of the breaches and the impact, and it can be a deterrent as well. So going beyond mindfulness to build resiliency. So that's the part I want to hear about, right? It says, although some organizations try to address overall worker mental health issues through mindfulness and other programs, experts say they need to dig deeper to address the unique issues facing cybersecurity professionals. Mindfulness is a wonderful practice, Miller says. We're working at a very deep level with not only how do you not decrease your stress through mindfulness interventions like breathing, body tensing, stress reduction, but also giving skills for dealing with a difficult, challenging emotion or judgment or circumstance on how to build an inner resources of indestructible well-being. It's a mouthful. CISOs must think about building these kind of emotional resilience reservoirs among their team members well before any actual crisis, right? So that's true, because you can't wait until you're actually in a crisis to implement these things. You need to start training your people early on so that they can be strong, they can be resilient, so they don't crack under pressure. There's an adage from the military that the more you drill, the better you will perform in real life. Sullivan says, I agree with that, and that clearly is the case in cybersecurity incidents too. The more repetition we get, the more muscle memory we have, and the more coordination we have amongst the disparate parties. We need to invest a lot more in preparing for crisis, because if we prepare well, we'll emerge more successfully. Totally agree with that. So normalizing crises to reduce shock. Normalizing crises could help reduce the emotional shock of a bad cybersecurity incident. I've got this really good advice from COO of eBay, When I was working there, Sullivan says, he said, if your job is to respond to crisis situations, you need to build an organization that views it as their job, not as a crisis. Interesting. So if your job is to respond to crisis situations, you need to build your organization to view that crisis situation as a job, not as a crisis. That is, I totally agree with that. In short, if your job is to put out fires, build a fire department. Firefighters wake up every day, and they know what their job is. They don't stress. They go into high risk situations, but they're prepared and trained, work in shifts, and have the right equipment. They're built to respond to fires. We have to build to respond. We have to build our security organizations to respond to fires as well. Ian Campbell, security operations engineer at Domain Tools, spent 10 years as an emergency response dispatcher. He extends the fire department metaphor to underscore the importance of not allowing team members to bottle up their emotions after an incident. Campbell observed that the police department was very much, this is what happens, get it done, move on to the next. And that is a tough spot to be in. The fire department, on the other hand, had structures set up ahead of time that were much healthier for people to process incidents. With many pre and post incident discussions on how the firefighters were feeling, Campbell says, what I realized throughout the 10 years is that keep it to yourself is a harmful attitude. Setting up programs like the fire department program ahead of time is crucial. So the importance of getting HR on board. Although most CISOs readily agree that their organization would benefit from programs to help their teams deal with trauma of cybersecurity incidents, funding these initiatives from human resources departments, which typically control the purse strings for employee assistance programs, is often an obstacle. We have found that HR doesn't understand, Miller says. They think that the cyber workers are similar to other workers in their industry, and it's just not so. Hamilton recommends that CISOs lobby the HR department for funding by highlighting the turnover cost of stress and burnout. The burnout rate is astronomical for this job, he says. So that would probably be the value proposition to give to HR as is about retention. Says Sullivan thinks that a helpful maneuver is for CISOs to share their burdens across the organization. Security leaders take the whole weight of security of their organization on their shoulders when the reality is it's not the security leaders who decides in a vacuum. How big is our security budget as an organization? What is our risk prioritization as an organization? How do we communicate about the security incidents as an organization? The security leader doesn't own any of those things. That's 100% fact, right? One thing that I do as a quality assurance engineer is I make QA the responsibility of the entire team. Like, yes, I might be accountable and responsible for QA, but it is our job as a team to if we see something, we say something, we sometimes, like, they have to help me in testing. Sometimes they might create some additional functionality so that I can facilitate testing a lot better. But it is not a one person job. You might be the only security person or the only QA person on your team, but it doesn't mean that everything falls on you. You need to be able to advocate and ask for help as well. And that's what I see the CISOs are doing, okay? Or being recommended to do. It says, we're trending in the right direction, but the progress we've made is a reflection on the effort of the security leaders in place right now, says Sullivan. But most CEOs, chief legal officers, head of communications, business leaders in general have hundreds of stresses that are giving them anxiety every day. Unless a security leader stands up, raises their hand, and says, here's a corporate level of anxiety that we all need to address together, the rest of the leaders shouldn't be expected to jump right in. All right. So that is the article written by Cynthia Brumfield over at CISO Online or CSO Online. Shout out to her. Let's go back to full screen as we wrap it up for today. So thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of The Bug Bite, hosted by your truly tech coach Ralph. We just finished the article from last week where they're talking about how people in cybersecurity, they can get like burned out very, very easily, and just making a mistake can just throw you off for a whole loop. And they're talking about how to build that resiliency, all that good stuff. It was a really, really good article. I hope you got to see part one. If not, I will put it right there for you so you can click on it. You can see part one. And then you can take a look at this article as well to see, or this second part of the article to see how it all comes together and the challenging role that CSOs or CISOs have on a day-to-day basis. All right, but with that being said, we're gonna get out of here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of the Bug Bite. I'm Tech Coach Ralph. Do me a favor on your way out, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification so you know every time we go live and drop new content. As well, go to techcoachralph.dev where you can sign up for a Patreon account where you can get one-on-one coaching with me. You can get access to exclusive content, and you can get teleported into our Discord where there's a lot of things happening. This past weekend, we just had a quick little meetup to offer some Python help, and I was able to help some of the Patreon members get a better direction in getting through the initial stages of Python. They have a very, very promising future, but I would highly recommend that you go there as well so that you can participate and you can learn with everyone else. All right. With that being said, I'm going to get out of here. You guys have an amazing, amazing rest of your day. Amazing, amazing weekend. I'm Tech Coach Ralph. We are out.
Caught in a glitch. What's the fix this time? Chasing down bugs. Oh, it feels like a crime. Every software tale got a story to tell. In the world of tech, it's a digital swell. Watch us dive deep in lines of code, finding the truth on this heavy road. Welcome to the Bug Bite, we unveil the fight. In a world of software, we'll shine the light. From errors to dangers, we'll guide your way. Stay tuned for the scoop every single day. Cyber shadows lurk in the data stream. Hacking our dreams, is it all just a scheme? From the latest news to the viral threat, we break it all down, you ain't seen nothing yet. With every bug found, we take a stance. Join in the rhythm, give tech a chance. Welcome to the Bug Bite, we unveil the fight. In a world of software, we'll shine the light. From errors to dangers, we'll guide your way. Stay tuned for the scoop every single day. Hit subscribe, don't miss out the fun. Together we'll conquer one bug at a run. We'll guide your way. Stay tuned for the scoop every single day. So hit that subscribe, don't miss out the fun. Together we'll conquer one bug at a run.